In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Lizzie Haynes, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome, all you lords, ladies, and knights, to the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and then talk about them. I'm your host, Russell Guest, and joining me today is my good friend and co-host from deep in the heart of Texas, Mr. Dustin Melbardis. How you doing, sir?
Good evening, Russell. I'm doing great, man.
Dustin's coming to us from the Lone Star State, but it's not lonely in the Lone Star State. No, there's somebody else here from Texas joining us, Jennifer Fox Bratton. How are you doing, Jennifer? First time.
We are cold here in Texas.
Ooh.
It's horrible here right now.
Rough.
It's like 21 degrees here, and we don't do cold here in Texas at all.
We're talking to a northeastern guy, and we're freezing down here.
Yeah, I know. Like, kids are out of school today. It's like awful.
Well, I'm here in the Steel City of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I'm regular cold. But today we're going to have a movie that has a great wedding scene. Let's break the ice here, warm up here a little bit here. So what is a wedding scene in a movie you love, Jennifer?
I would have to say, like, probably Sound of Music. I know that's, like, so old, but, you know, when they get married at the end and they're walking down the aisle, you know, it's just so beautiful and elegant.
We like old here. That counts. Dustin, how about you?
Yeah, I looked at the way you phrased the question. What's a wedding scene in a movie you love? So it doesn't have to be about a wedding or about the marriage. So, of course, I subverted the question. I went with Beetlejuice.
Oh, gosh.
Obviously. A movie I love, and it has a wedding in it. And I think the thing that was funny about it is, like, the consequences of most wedding movies, like, oh, no, these people aren't actually in love, or, oh, no, there's actually a problem. Here, our problem is, like, the worst ghost in the world is going to be released back into the land of the living. So it's got, like, huge consequences. But I got to tell you guys, you know, I work in the wedding industry. I've been in this industry for 6-7 years. The best weddings are the ones where tradition is really played with. And just 2 years ago, I had a bride wear the big red dress that Lydia's wearing in that movie. And it was an awesome, right around October, awesome creative take on tradition.
Yeah, honestly, I've never been a wedding person until my daughter got married last year. And so, like, when I actually, like, went through the whole thing with her and, like, the sentiment of it, like, I've never really, like, had value in weddings before. And so, yeah, so it was actually great to go back and, like, rewatch this movie, like, with different eyes now that I actually have a respect for weddings, because I used to just kind of think they were kind of silly and overpriced.
They are overpriced, that part.
They are overpriced, but yeah.
For sure. Keeping me employed.
Yeah.
Well, my best wedding scene that I love is from Wayne's World 2. We've covered Wayne's World, but not Wayne's World 2. And I love the spoof scene. It's a graduate spoof scene where Wayne goes to stop a wedding. He goes into a very cool modern church. He bangs on the glass from the balcony, trying to stop the wedding. And he turns around and it's not the right wedding. It's not the bride or the groom that he's trying to stop. And then he runs out in the street. He looks at the sign. It says First Presby Church. And then he looks across the street and it says Second Presby Church. And they do a mirror shot of the exact identical church. And then he runs into that church, bangs onto the glass. And it's Christopher Walken, too, to add to the matter. So, I mean, this has, and then they Lemonheads, I think it is, play Miss Robinson as they run out. So this has 90s alternative music, modern architecture, pretty actress, comedy movie masterpiece, and Christopher Walken. That's a bingo for me.
I mean, Christopher Walken, what can you say? You know, Christopher Walken.
All right. And what's the last movie you saw, Jennifer?
Wicked. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, last movie I watched was Wicked. And
Good.
So, yeah, actually, I was, like, thinking about that when I was thinking about my best friend's wedding, because, like, Cameron Diaz's character reminds me so much of Glinda. You know what I mean? Like, she's always in the pink with the pearls, you know? Yeah, and so I've been a Wicked fan for 20 years, so I actually went to go to theater to watch it.
I think it was a big deal for a lot of people. Like, Wicked was kind of a huge cultural impact, and everyone was waiting for this. I agree with you about the Cameron Diaz thing. It's almost like there's a different filter on her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, Dustin, how about you? What's the movie that you last saw?
I was talking to one of my employees about the show, and he was asking me about movie soundtracks. And I did come up with a couple, right off the top of my head, is that I think Baby Driver's incredible. I grew up with like the Pulp Fiction soundtrack as well. But then I started talking about the Ocean series, Oceans 11, 12, 13. And so I rewatched Oceans 12. It's got someone we might recognize in that movie tonight. But also, I'm a fan of Vincent Cassel and Eddie Izzard. Like, it's just a fun movie. I think those movies are underrated.
They are fun. Love to cover some of those. The last movie I saw was a Disney movie, Ratatouille from 2007. Grant had never
Fun.
seen this one before, so we watched it. And
Right.
I like this movie. It's an underrated Disney movie.
It is. It is. My son loved it.
All right. What movie are we going to be covering today, Dustin?
From 1997, My Best Friend's Wedding.
All right. This movie stars Julia Roberts, Dermot Mulroney, Cameron Diaz, Rupert Everett, and Philip Bosco. It comes out in 1997. It is budgeted at $38 million. It grosses a ton of money at $127.1 million domestically alone. It places at number 9. It's the top 10 movie on the year for a romantic comedy. Love it. It's at number 9 on the year. Movie placed ahead of it with Star Wars, A New Hope 97 special edition re-release. That's amazing when you can just release your new movie again and it's a top 10 movie again.
Yeah.
That's insane. And then the movie that it comes behind it is Tomorrow Never Dies, which, Dustin, wouldn't it be nice if there was an episode that someone could listen to?
It was my dealer's choice, man.
Oh, there is. Wouldn't it be great if it had 2 wonderful hosts? Oh, that's right. That was us. Yeah. Number 1 movie that year. If you didn't get enough Dustin from Tomorrow Never Dies, check out Titanic, because the number 1 movie that year was also Titanic. So we're covering a lot of stuff here. IMDb gives a 6.4 to My Best Friend's Wedding. Critics of Rotten Tomatoes are at 74%, and the audience score is right about there at 73% as well. It is an Academy Award nominee for Best Music or Original Musical or Score or Comedy. The Golden Globes nominee for Best Motion Picture, Comedy or Musical, Best Performance by an Actress to Julia Roberts, Best Performance by a Supporting Role to Rupert Everett. It is a BAFTA nominee for Best Performance by an Actor to Rupert Everett. Satellite Awards winner for Best Actor Supporting Role to Rupert Everett. Satellite Awards nominee, Best Motion Picture, Comedy or Musical, Best Actress to Julia Roberts, Best Actress Supporting Role to Cameron Diaz, and MTV Movie Award nominee 3 times over. It is being held in high esteem for both a romantic comedy and just for being a comedy in general. Now, Jennifer, have you seen My Best Friend's Wedding before? If so, what was your background with it? When did you first see it? What's it like coming back to it now?
Yeah, actually, I just want to say really quick, poor Dermot, like, he didn't get anything for this movie. Like, he wasn't recognized at all. I'm sorry. I just had to throw that in there.
He got to be in it.
He got to be in it. That's right. Yeah, that's true. But no, like, actually, this movie came out on June 20th, 1997, which was 3 weeks after my daughter was born. So I think it was the first time I left my daughter and went to the movies with my sister. So I saw it in the theater, like 3 weeks after my daughter was born. So that's why I specifically remember this movie really well. And then when she was little, we lived across the street, like from a Blockbuster. And so I remember, like, I used to put her in her little stroller and we would walk like the 1 mile all the way up down the road to get to the Blockbuster so we could like rent the movie. So for probably a solid year, I rented it like once a week.
I love it. I love the commitment to walking to Blockbuster. I love that story that you can tell it to your grandchildren. I walked to the Blockbuster to get my movies.
I did. And I have I've always had a special connection to Julia Roberts just because I went to the David Letterman show one time and she was on there.
Oh, wow.
When Julia Roberts walked out, she was wearing this like white suit and like you could just hear everybody in the audience was like, you know what I mean? I mean, she was like as beautiful and spectacular in person, like more than you could even imagine. I don't think I've ever in my life seen anybody look that put together. So
truly breathtaking.
She was. And then she started telling a story about a celebrity she didn't like, which we all knew was probably Nick Nolte, because she was talking about him throwing a fit and throwing out the F-bomb, but she was saying the F-bomb, but they bleeped her out. And so I don't know. It was like ever since Julia Roberts, she's always been like one of my favorite actresses ever. So.
All right. Well, there's definitely some good Julia Roberts action in this movie. So you've seen this a lot. You definitely hit it hard. Has it been a while? And what's it like coming back to it now, Jennifer?
Yeah, no, actually, I had not watched it probably in 20 years, like a long time. Probably not since my daughter was little, until I rewatched it last night with my stepdaughter. Yeah, it was very different watching it this time. I caught so much more watching it as I'm older now than I did before. I didn't even realize the setting was in Chicago. Like, I guess I thought my whole life it was in New York, but it's definitely in Chicago. The technology blew my mind. Like the cell phones, the big black cell phones where you have to pick up, they were like T9 in it, you know what I mean? And then, like, when she gets on the computer to like type the letter to the boss, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I haven't seen a computer look like that in like ages. Taking me back into time when like technology was so new. Like, nope, I didn't have a cell phone then. You know what I mean?
That was a sleek Mac Apple laptop too, so that was top of the line there in '97. It doesn't seem so sleek anymore. Yes,
right.
I know.
Well, I like how you're saying like they were T9 in it. Like, no, they weren't. Texting wasn't a thing. Not really.
Was it really not even a thing yet?
No,
yeah, they didn't text in the movie. You're right. I don't know when we started texting.
You're right.
I remember when it was selling packages of like 50 text messages a month. Like, okay, yeah, this is like a weird special thing. And I didn't even do it for the first 2 years I had a cell phone. So, yeah, this was right on the heels of like bag phones and car phones. It really was. Oh, these people must be well off if they've got a cell phone at 27. Well done.
Yeah.
Dustin, how about you? Had you seen My Best Friend's Wedding before?
Yeah, I had, but I've never paid attention to it. I had an ex who this was one of her favorite movies, but it was not one of those movies where your partner sits you down and says, we're watching this together. But we've all talked about, like, you have those movies where you make a choice, be like, you need to watch this. This matters to me. We never did that. And this was a pretty long relationship. So it had been on and I was aware of it. Of course, Julia Roberts, incredibly charming, but this was something I never really paid attention to. So I got to pay attention to it this time. I think it deserves the attention when I wouldn't say it drew me in as fully as other styles of movies, but I'm not anti-rom-com. I know what we're here for. And I think we got what we came for. I wasn't expecting this time, like, to come around to be so captivated by our use of music. We will talk about that way later in the show, but this was when like I gave it the full hour and 45, and I'm like, oh, there's some stuff that's being well done here. And I don't think I was expecting to like give a little golf clap. Like, oh, well done. Good job on this.
Well, I had never seen this movie before. I was confused about which movie it even was. I had somehow mixed it up with a different movie. I'm not even sure which movie I thought it was. I did not realize Julia Roberts was in My Best Friend's Wedding. So I was coming in on this one really cold. I actually conferred with our co-host Chad, who has seen every rom-com under the sun. We got the short list, and I said, because I've not seen any of these movies, and I said, which one of these should we watch? And he said, Best Friend's Wedding, for sure. That's the best of these, best of this bunch. So do that one. So we heeded our good friend Chad's advice, and here we are doing this now. I had fun watching this one. I don't see movies like this anymore, so I feel like this is another one of those things we talk about, how box office sometimes shift on movies. You don't see a lot of these anymore either. There aren't as many comedies being released, mainstream comedies. Well, the rom-com, I'm realizing, is another one of those things that you're not getting as many of anymore. And so I'm going to say that makes this a little more special because in the same way that I guess if your grandfather was sitting there watching a Western or a noir mystery or whatever, this right now, as things stand with the current box office and the way the market forces go, this is from a bygone era. And people said there were just so many of them. They were a dime a dozen, and there were so many of them, but there aren't anymore. They're gone. And
yeah. Oh, and right. And they exist only in a different form. And we don't actually deep dive on this that much, but these things still exist. They're just on streaming, and they are made with people you don't know.
Okay, that's fair, but I'm maybe a little more oblivious to the streaming thing. They're not getting the attention they once were. So I thought it was interesting, and it's making me come back and view this kind of thing very differently. And I will say, without spoiling it, this movie is not what I expected. I expected a lot of the typical things, and while this does certainly make the template, it also does things very differently. And so it is unique, as far as I can tell, and I'm not that versed in this genre. I did enjoy this movie. I would recommend it, and I thought it was fun. I would watch it again. We will be back. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. We will be back after these messages.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason. And this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments, too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
This is your final warning. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. Now, Dustin, for those who haven't seen My Best Friend's Wedding since 1997, do you want to refresh people's memories?
Julianne Potter checks her answering machine and hears a message from her longtime best friend, Michael O'Neill, who must urgently talk to her about attending his upcoming wedding. Jules can't just let him marry someone else, so she makes the deliberate decision to break up the wedding, to claim her man back once and for all. Upon meeting the bride-to-be, Kimmy, she realizes she's all too creme brulee perfect, and a real catch for her best friend Michael. Combine that with her editor George's advice to just let them be, she is torn between her seedy and underhanded attempts to break them up and just telling Michael the truth. She receives the validation from Michael she needed in this whirlwind breakup scheme, but her stupid morals get in the way of the bombshell that would certainly break them up, before an unwitting clerical error results in opening up the only wound that exists between Michael and Kimmy's perfect relationship. As catastrophe strikes and the plan actually does result in them calling off the wedding, neither of the betrothed has the backbone to call off the lavish affair, and Jules' presence backfires into being the confidant of both Michael and Kimmy yet again. Jules is finally honest with Michael, but the pendulum is swung back. Her only redeeming path is to try to salvage the wedding, leading us to a high-speed Grand Theft Auto car chase through Chicago. Sure, there are worse things than being alone at a black tie wedding at 27 years old, but if her spirits were too down, realizing that she made the right move through a quote-unquote losing effort, her editor George shows up and comforts her with his friendship.
All right, Jennifer, this is a fun movie. This is a different kind of movie than we normally see. As I mentioned, the girl does not get the guy in this movie, but more importantly, is our main character the villain of this movie?
Yeah, that's what I love about this movie is because like there's not a clear protagonist. You know what I mean? You start out like loving Julia Roberts, like just as a person, just by her friendship with George, but like as soon as you realize she's getting herself into the situation, she's just like doing horrible, terrible things, but you can tell they're not the horrible, terrible things that are her typical personality. She is just desperate. And I think what starts out as being like her being desperate just to win in this situation, then she realizes that actually like she thinks that she's really like missed the love of her life. And so that desperation just makes her really actually turn into, I guess, what you would call the antagonist. She what did turn out to be the villain.
It's hard to use the word villain with a face like Julia Roberts's, nominated or I guess named the most beautiful person in the world a record 5 times in a row. To have that person, our star, be the person that's wrecking this situation. Coming in cold, I mean, it's not, she hasn't talked to Michael in a while. She does not know Kimmy. And it's very clearly put to you. This isn't like I don't know what I want to do. She says, I got to break this thing up. Like it's said to us as the audience. Oh, we know. And so at this point we go, okay, so we are, it's like I said, it's hard to use the word villain or antagonist because I think we are rooting for Julia Roberts. Like we are rooting for Jules to find something. But as we kind of go through and see the way that she could cause pain, this movie doesn't have a lot of visible pain that you see. It's got a lot of longing. And that's its own type of emotion here. So you see her dealing with that longing. You definitely see, like we said, Dermot Mulroney didn't get a lot of credit for his role, but you can see it in his portrayal that he's very still got tons of feelings for her. And then you add in our pink filtered Cameron Diaz. Who would want to hurt that precious little bunny rabbit? And it's just like you see that like, oh, there is it's not so bad as the Wicked Witch coming in. It's, oh, this is, what are we supposed to root for here? And in the end, what we are left with is, oh, well, I guess we're rooting for friendship.
Yeah, but like starting out though, like, right when you see Cameron Diaz and like she walks up, you're like, oh, you're gonna hate her. You know what I mean? Like nobody is that stinking perfect, you know? And
Right.
like she just like her whole like demure. And randomly she was wearing like the only thing I knew her from before that was the mask. And like I don't know why several times in the movie she's like wearing yellow and green. And I was getting like mask
know.
flashbacks. It was really weird. But anyway, so like, you know, like right off the bat, like you're just like thinking to yourself, like, yeah, I'm gonna hate her. I like she's gonna be so annoying, I'm gonna hate her. And like no more do they like get past that car ride, and you're just like, oh, poor Kimmy. Like she's just so stinking. Like, how can you hate her?
I had expectations going in, and I thought Julia Roberts is just America's sweetheart, and everybody loves her, as you said. Like, she has this big smile, and she has this big hair and big brown eyes, and everybody loves her. I kept expecting Cameron Diaz's character to be like, oh, our family profits from, illegally, shipping in, guns or something like that. Like, there's got to be something terrible, something horrible, so that then Julia can come in and rescue good old Michael and save him and go get married with him. I really, really, really expected that. I expected that even into the point of like the email. I'm sitting there going like, this email that she's writing is pretty condemning stuff. I mean, she just saved it for later, but it got sent. She shouldn't have written it. Even as she's sitting there, it's like saved draft. I'm like, it's a short email. You can write that again. This is a bad. This is bad. You don't do that. And sure enough, it goes out. And I think that's when I sat there and go like, I am not rooting for her 100% here anymore. And you're just rooting for her to learn a lesson, to have individual growth. I think you were saying rooting for friendship. I'm rooting for individual growth and perspective. You've really flubbed this up. And so she does do that. And in a weird way, losing feels good. Again, it's Julia Roberts. She's America's sweetheart. There's some people like Meg Ryan or Julia Roberts. You can't really hate them, even though what she did was bad. It was bad. But we like that she has grown from it. And luckily, George, who we haven't mentioned yet, kind of acts as this voice of reason for this movie. And he's incredibly likable.
Oh, he is the voice of reason from the very get-go. Like, he's the star of the movie, in my opinion. Can I throw in, like, that he was the first gay character I'd ever seen in a movie. And so I mentioned this to you the other day, but, like, this was pre-Will and Grace. You know what I mean? And so especially being down in Texas, like, I didn't go to high school with anybody that was out. You know what I mean? It was still like this weird, like, I'm not going to lie. I was like, it was a long time ago. I've evolved, but, I mean, to me, like gay people were like, at the time, I like didn't know what to think about them. And so the way that they portrayed him though, was like, he was not just like the silly gay best friend. He was sophisticated. He was like demure. You know what I mean? Like everything about him just like drew you in. I just wanted to throw that in.
I think it's important that he's gay. But this is more of a device than a fully well-rounded gay character. Is that, and I'm not detracting from his portrayal. It's incredible. He does steal the show. We know this. But the idea is he's only gay so that we are not led down the path that Julia finds her kinship or her love with him. He's not on the table. It's in order for her to reach this personal growth that is not superseded by finding love someplace else you weren't looking. Another common trope is no, not only is he gay, but he's also in a loving relationship, a successful relationship with Vernick or whatever his name is. So this is like, we have to be shown he's not part of this equation in the love aspect or the romantic love aspect. He's in the equation as the voice of reason, like you mentioned.
But he steps into it in a very Lucy Ricardo kind of way. She uses him to say, like, my handsome, articulate British friend here, I'm marrying him, and now are you jealous? And it works. Michael doesn't like that. He's like, whoa, I'm jealous. And
he says insanely jealous. That's exactly what he said. He said he was insanely jealous.
His character works for the ruse, for the jealousy trick, whether he's gay or not, because nobody else at the wedding area knows that.
But like you said, if he's not gay, then he can't also kind of have that best friend kind of,
It muddies the water, because this is done in several rom-coms since then, that the person that's been by your side is actually the one you're meant to be with. No, not here. The person by your side is helping you and using this as a great opportunity to embarrass her or to kind of put her in situations that he knows that she doesn't particularly enjoy. And Julia does a good job of playing off that, like, okay, yeah, don't tell that story. Like, you're going too far. And he's just hamming it up. So fun.
But like how like relevant is that in today's time though? And so the whole idea of like the fact that I personally have friends right now that their gay best friend is their soulmate. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what the movie like you end with. You know what I'm saying? Like she had to let one person go. Her whole issue in her whole life has been with attachment. So maybe George is her soulmate. Maybe George is who she is meant to be with.
Meant to be a far more important presence, perhaps. Like something you should a rock.
Your person, yeah, your person is not always necessarily like your spouse or your person you're in a relationship with. Like sometimes it's just who understands you the most. And so,
yeah. Well, if we think about how, like, what does this movie leave us with? Is a 27-year-old with her whole life in front of her. Only now she's free of the baggage. Now she's free of, well, I was always holding on to this man. He's married now. He gone. So because of that, she can now open up, maybe with this added support, and find someone that she's supposed to. We only get stories. It is only described to us. It is not shown to us that she hasn't had any other relationships that matter for more than 2 weeks or whatever. But that all being said, his presence there is obviously so great for the movie to be successful, but we're left with, all right, she's got a great friend in her editor. She's not carrying on to the baggage of, well, I'm probably going to end up with this guy. And 27 is not old. So there's so much time left for her.
I was just thinking about that too. Like earlier when I was watching it, the way they describe 27.
I know.
Like 27, like back in the 90s, back in 1997 is like 37 now. You know what I mean? Like what 27, most 27-year-olds are having to still live with their parents. I mean, like no shame in that because of the economy, but you know what I mean? Like we, like in the last, since 1997, look how like different society is now, because used to, if you weren't married by 30 and you hadn't popped out like at least one kid, like you were just like, really behind.
Well, and this might be one of those things that we didn't mention it earlier with the does it hold up, but clearly that's different now. This phrase of, if neither of us is married by this age, then you and I, maybe we get hitched. That hasn't been 28 for my entire lifetime. That's always been like, hey, if we're not married at 35 or 40,
35, I think, yeah.
That's what I've heard that phrase as. And so we think back of like mid 90s as completely different than 30 years ago, y'all, is that we have other examples of movies from this time and other stressors of what being a woman was at that time. What did we cover with Lizzie Russell? The First Wives Club, right? A trope that truly holds no footing today, like incredibly dated, the idea of being the second wife or something like that. This instance here, everyone still holds on to the "is it too late for me" type of thing. But it is. I'm glad that you brought it up, Jennifer. Is that 27 is like today's, or 37 is the new 27.
I think another thing that is also unique about this movie, again, I do not have as encompassing of knowledge of the genre as some, but persistence and insistence paying off in the world of romance movies and rom-com are there. And sometimes this doesn't make them age very well. We just covered The Notebook, where Ryan Gosling gets away by being extremely pushy in his advances. Now, it works when you look like Ryan Gosling and you're handsome, but when you look like the other 95% of the population, this comes off as creepy, and particularly in today's times, doesn't go down very well. So for those of us who don't look like Chris Hemsworth or Brad Pitt or Ryan Gosling, that nature, that pursuit, that persistence, as long as I keep hitting and going at it and going over and over and over again, I'll win. And that's a message that a lot of these rom-coms kind of have. In this case, it's the female character doing that, and it doesn't work. That's different. It breaks the mold. And I think you both have talked about these things. Ronald Bass, who wrote this, he wrote Sleeping with the Enemy. He wrote Rain Man. He's a good writer. He comes here and he writes this, and he said, I wanted to do two things. I wanted to write a romance comedy where a woman does not get the guy in the end, and I wanted to create a relationship with that heroine with a kind, rational, attractive gay man who was desirable in his own right. And again, Will and Grace hadn't been made yet, so they were really going out there on a limb. Those were two goals that he had. He heard a woman talking about a woman wondering what her life would have been like had she married Mr. Right, and what her life would have been like had she married him. And since that guy was getting married, and someone at the table said, well, it's not too late. We just need to go break the wedding up and steal him away. And that got his gears churning. So it's interesting that little piece that he heard, a joke, ha, 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 kind of funny thing at the table, and these two ideas, you can see that in itself, those are differentiators. That's why this movie is on these AFI lists. It sets itself apart from the other movies that might be, I don't know, a 4 or 5 on IMDb that it came and went. And you're allowed to like those movies. There's nothing wrong with liking those movies if this is your thing. This movie just did something that's different. It got a lot of praise for it. And obviously it had big star power behind it, because anything Julia Roberts was in at this era was just lightning. I mean, she was probably the most powerful woman in Hollywood at this era. I don't know if that's a fair statement. I perceive that she was not just, there's stars and there's mega stars. And Julia was a mega star.
Can I ask y'all a question? Because, I mean, you touched on it earlier, but like one thing that I noticed when I rewatched this is the movie that did age well. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't anything that you go back and look at now and you're like, you know, because even when you think about Julia Roberts and like her breakout role in Pretty Woman, you know, when you go back and you watch that now, there's a lot of really cringy things, you know, just about that in that movie.
Yeah.
And like this movie is just like what I think sets this movie apart, like makes it a classic, is because it has aged well. You know, they didn't touch on the things that now we look back and we think, you know, about the way that women were looked at the time. Julia Roberts came out from the very first scene sitting at that restaurant, and you realize she's like a boss lady. You know what I mean? Like all those chefs are looking through the window at her, you know, all wanting her approval. And, you know, that's something else that wasn't a big deal at the time. You didn't see like successful women, you know, in their own rights being, you know, financially set on their own like that. And so that's something else that I think that was different about a movie in that time, because like I said, most women in the movies at that time kind of played more of the Cameron Diaz role, you know, the little girl ready to, as she called her, Miss Preteen Illinois, you know, the little, you know, cutesy girl just, you know, ready to right out of the sorority and get married, you know? And so I don't know. I just thought that that's something I noticed, that I didn't notice anything in this movie that like made me feel cringy.
Well, to answer your question, I think the reason for me that the part about it that holds up is the emotion. Jealousy exists whether you're rich or poor. Mm-hmm. And so jealousy, especially with like the apple of your eye, you know, your attention, that's going to exist forever. That's a good starting point. Having to like a friend that's saying like, let him go. You're there to stand by her. Crazy, but she's the maid of honor, by the way. Well, but like you're there for a job. Just let him go. Like the idea of releasing the whatever you've been holding on to, like that ages well. There are other things that I think exist within like the culture of any movie involving a wedding or the family of the bride or groom. Usually this is used as like a treasure trove of comedy. I don't think that's actually done that much here. These characters exist, but there's not like a zany side of the family or anything, a la Wedding Crashers or something like that. So
yeah, just the two cousins that are like randomly in the movie. Do you know the ugly cousins?
Well, they're randomly in the movie, but they're incredible backup singers.
For sure.
She got stuck on an ice sculpture.
I know. I just watched that earlier.
I got to bring this up. The movie knows it's a movie, and the movie knows it's shooting for yucks. When you do more than one scene that breaks into song, it doesn't take itself too seriously. Another reason why it holds up is that, like, yeah, wow, this opening title sequence is 3 minutes long. Okay, interesting. What am I getting into? And when you break into song as much as they do, like, this is actually like, once I mentioned the use of music, but two is like, this movie knows what it's doing. It's not doing it in the art, we'll say the artist's way. It's doing it in the, hey, we're gonna make some money. This is gonna be good in the box office, and you know that those fans of this movie, that when they rewatch it, you know that when these songs start playing, that they're dancing in their kitchen or they are singing along with it, because that's part of the success of the movie.
The way they entered, like, went into the scene when they're all sitting around eating together, you know, and all of a sudden he breaks out in the song after he says that he met her in the mental institution.
Yeah.
And Dionne Warwick, you know, started singing the song, and then he just starts in on it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's not like a hokey transition into a song like you see in so many movies, you know. It just went seamlessly, like, right into that. And so, I just, like, everybody, if everybody thinks of a music scene from that movie, I would think they would think of that scene, because it's like the greatest music scene in that whole movie.
You know, we covered It Happened One Night, 1930s movie, long time ago. And on the episode, Chad and Lizzie were on it, and they mentioned that people were on the bus and they were just singing, you know, flying through the air like the greatest of ease, and everybody knew all the words, and everybody was kind of like, and Lizzie and Chad were like, I guess people just randomly broke out to song back then. No, probably not then either, but it's fun. And it's fun when it happens here in 1997 too. And someday your grandchildren will sit there and go like, guess people just broke out into song in the middle of just Stone Crab Restaurant in Chicago, and they have calls ready to go, and they just break into songs. Like, yes, they do. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's like you said, it's one of the things that I think the use of music's excellent in this one. PJ Hogan, the director, talks about, I just like music. It makes him happy. He likes comedy, he likes music, and he knows how to use them both. And I'm really glad he did, because, you know, you could have just made this movie and not had that in there. Easily could have not had that in there, and it would have been a huge lost opportunity. I mean, we talked about how, you know, Rupert Everett is kind of steals the show. This is where he totally steals it. Even Julia Roberts is like looking at him kind of like, is like, stop it. And like, you know, he's loving it. He's laying it on, and he's seeing how far he can get away with this. And everybody else is excited and captivated by his story. So there's a lot of, the music delivers comedy too. It makes it fun, which is obviously the goal when you make a romantic comedy, but also that's so memorable. If you hear that song, I have not really had this in my iPod or whatever, but if I hear that song ever again, I will associate it with this movie. I mean, that's how powerful that scene. I mean, I won't be able to hear that Burt Bacharach written, I guess Dionne Warwick performed song and not think of that. I did think the opening, you've seen this multiple times, Jennifer. Does that opening, I felt like, what are we doing here when I started it? And I still wonder that a little bit. Like, does it make more sense with more viewings? I mean,
I didn't think about it until last night. I honestly forgotten about it altogether until it started.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, so what I felt like they were trying to do is like introduce the whole idea of like what we were talking about earlier, is the traditional, you know, like bride with the bridesmaids, just all like showing that you care. It's all about the man. You know what I mean? And so I think that's just what they were trying to portray. They were wanting to try to make you think that that's kind of like the way this movie was going to go. It was all going to be like all like traditional and old school. And then instead it was just like Julia Roberts just like being one train wreck after another, trying to like break up what should have been like a beautiful wedding. So that's the only thing I got out of it. Cause like, honestly, last night when I watched that for the first time, I was like, why have I never noticed this before? I never noticed it until I watched it last night.
Yeah. Now, Julia Roberts had this pretty early. If she wants a role at this point, she gets it. She is instrumental in helping get, she wanted Dermot Mulroney and Cameron Diaz for this film. Drew Barrymore did read for Kimberly, lost to Cameron Diaz, obviously. I kind of feel like that would have been a lot of fun to see Drew Barrymore there. Laura Dern and Calissa Flockhart were also considered for the part. Calissa Flockhart was also considered for the Julia Roberts role. We haven't really given Cameron Diaz as much credit here. She's really good in that like likable role. Like I said, I just kept waiting to hate her, but she just was very likable the whole time.
Oh, the karaoke bar scene. I'm
Wonderful
sorry.
scene.
Oh my gosh. You know, like right off the bat, like you just walk in and you know, like that Jules is just like totally setting her up for failure, you know?
Yeah.
And this is right when you think she's like almost going to get out of it, you know? No, she just turns the mic right on her, you know? And you could just, I've been in that feeling before, you know, where your armpits are burning. You're like, oh my gosh, I got to get up and sing or do something, you know? And so, like, of course, it starts off like horribly. and then before you know it, like she's just
You
so
suck.
yes, yeah, that's exactly what somebody says. Yeah. And like, but before it's all said and done, like you're just like everybody in the crowd just thinks like who can't not love her? You know what I mean? Because she's just so cute, sitting there with her little pink Glinda outfit on with her pearls,
Yes, absolutely. It's meant to be like here start the hijinks. Here start the underhanded plan, and truly the first backfire of her plan. And this makes you lick your lips, being like, how else are we going to see her plans backfire? Because you learn right away that the things about her that are so sweet and nice, like you want to see her on screen, you want to see her happy, you don't want to see her hurt, and that puts you in conflict. The audience is that because we are given nothing about her being bad or about her family being bad or that there's a secret reason why she's wanting to marry him. Like, no, it's just she's young, 20-year-old, not going back to college. This is a different movie if we give there's something bad about her. It's what this is part of what makes it unique is that, yeah, it's actually anybody would be lucky to marry her or to have her fall in love with you, I guess is how I should say that. Is like it's fun. And yeah, she is Cameron Diaz is playing uncomfortable so well. Now, you had mentioned that she was in The Mask. The only other place I had seen her in this before that was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, in which her role is very small. But in The Mask, she's a bombshell.
Yes.
Then we look at the next 5 years and we start hitting like Charlie's Angels. Cameron Diaz goes on to be a queen for well over a decade, but she's still like young, sweet, short blonde hair. Like this is all what a perfect encapsulation of what you're trying to portray. Giving any sliver of something bad really changes what kind of movie this is. You are forced to be like, I find no fault in her. And then and actually it swings the other way with, isn't she precious? I laugh at every time when she's at the brunch and she's crying. She's like, these are the most beautiful flowers I've ever seen. It's like,
what about when she says, I can be Jello?
oh, she could be.
I'll be Jello.
You would never be Jello.
And Julie Roberts is like, you'll never be Jello.
Creme brulee cannot be Jello.
Creme brulee cannot be Jello.
Yeah, and then she goes back to Dermot Mulroney looks for her at the station, but she goes back to like the ballpark, and there's that confrontation in the bathroom, and she forgives. Like she doesn't hold her. Yeah, she lashes out for 30 seconds, but then after hearing the truth from Jules, she forgives, and yeah, and like they go back to the wedding hall together. It's just.
But I'm sorry, I have to say it though. I love it when she comes out of that bathroom stall. You know what I mean? Because she just lights into Julia Roberts, like Jules, for the first time. And it's like finally that actually showed like a different side of her too, because you could tell she had like been holding in so much jealousy to Julia the whole time. You know what I mean? Just because of the friendship. And like, but she just like wasn't going to let it out.
Russell, I got to ask, Jennifer, I like the way that you said this was she acting like all women might? I'm not saying this is a truth, but saying like, oh, your best friend is this gorgeous woman that they're holding on to jealousy.
Yeah, that doesn't normally happen. Okay. Not
right. But no, or there's another thing about both Michael and Kimmy is that they are not portrayed as stupid. Now, Kimmy might be naive, but they're not portrayed as stupid. Sometimes movies like this put like a little bit of a dullard twinge on the partner that's not right for them.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, like, no, you aren't rooting against her at all. And I love that backbone that she shows in that bathroom scene. But yeah, the idea of like, it wasn't until the kiss. So Julia Roberts' character finally tells the truth and you get that kiss. And it's like, oh, right. Is this going to be the game changer? And it ends up being the game changer in a worse way. Because what you see is this, little Miss Illinois see it and get hurt and then run away.
You did see an enormous amount of relief on her face when George was brought in as a supposed like suitor. Or sorry, not suitor, but like exactly. She was very excited. She's like,
so excited. She was like,
I was really afraid of you.
Oh, I did want to mention this. I said something that didn't age well. He did pop her on the hiney, and that wouldn't be okay today. But in that scene, she was just like, because she was just so excited because they were getting married.
But he's gay, and we know it, and therefore he's not interested.
But they don't know it. So if just some random guy popped me like that, I'd probably be like, "What?" I'd pop him right back.
Again,
and
if you carry the charisma of Rupert Everett and being British, and you can get away with things.
I might let him do that, but that's a different story. It's him. But anyways, but no, going back to what you were saying, like that when you were talking about the kiss, that's when she gets mad, and like something as a teacher I've always taught my students is like every great movie ends in a chase scene. You know what I mean? Like I always use The Sandlot actually, because like it's a great chasing with the dog at the end of the movie. And so this movie does not disappoint with the chase scene, because
it's great.
As soon as like she sees him kiss, she takes off running. Michael is chasing Kimmy. Jules is chasing Michael. She steals the caterer's truck. She's driving down the road like a psycho. And then she's on the phone, of course, with who? George. Yeah. And what does George say? She says, "I'm chasing Michael." And he was like, "What's Michael doing? Chasing Kimmy?" And then he says, "Jules, who's chasing you?"
Nobody.
Nobody.
Yep.
And then you're just like, oh,
What's the reason?
And like I said, that's the whole thing the whole time too, that like just makes you just like love even the relationship between like Kimmy and Michael is because like the way that he looks at her is different than the way he looks at Jules. It's like a totally different look. And you can just tell that he feels a different way about Kimmy than he ever did Jules because because Kimmy adores him. Kimmy lets him love her. And that's something that Jules never did. That's why that's why they were friend zoned. You know what I mean? Because she could never open up in that kind of way.
Well, and then you got to think about this is that the last hour and 20 minutes of the movie, which is the majority of the movie, is, and this is something I didn't think about till just now, we are actually seeing Jules, the character, wearing a particular type of mask for most of it. Is that she is changing who she is to trick Michael into falling back in love with her. It's not just the underhanded schemes. It's also things have changed. I'm not anti-lovey stuff, or I can dance now. Like
the baseball scene, the baseball game.
Yes.
Right off the bat, and she's carrying out the beers, and like all of a sudden she's like, "I've got moves you've never seen,"
Yeah.
And he's like, what? Like, that is not my friend. You are not flirty.
That scene, I would say that scene might have been one of the places where they might have gone a little too far, where they made it seem like they weren't going to get back together. Now, it was my first time, and I thought they were misdirecting, which is another reason why I kept looking for these two to get back together. That is one of those scenes where it's just like, if he's really all in on Kimmy, he might be going a little too hard. The boat ride in Chicago made me think that they were about to get together. I thought it was like, well, they're together now. That's what's going to happen, and it didn't. And
I've been dying to talk about the boat scene because that's my favorite scene of the movie.
Well, so these are moments that the Dermot Mulroney character, who by the way, I don't know, I can't picture him being in this. They wanted Russell Crowe for this one. He read and had no chemistry with Julia Roberts, and they all said this isn't working. And
they might as well called Nick Nolte.
Well, it didn't go well apparently, as you're alluding to there, Jennifer. But I mean, so Dermot Mulroney's character, I thought he was, like you said, Dustin. He's still got a thing for her to some degree. I think that they may have toyed with us as maybe you've tricked us a little bit. They kind of led me on. I felt like that these were there. In retrospect, going back and watching this a second time made me kind of sit there and go like, they might need to dial that back a little bit with his character.
They run a risk, Russell. They run a risk, which is that do you make a character on a moral ground potentially more unlikable if he is 3 days before the wedding being this close and a very particular type of intimate with the person the woman that he has been closest with the whole time?
Uh-huh.
When I watched this time, I go, is this almost on the verge of slimy?
Jennifer's saying no. Jennifer's saying no.
Jennifer's saying no.
I got things to say.
I thought so.
Yeah.
As a dude, I'm sitting there going like, dude, you're in trouble. Like
Well, me and Russell
you
were
haven't been caught yet, but you can't do that. It's like from a guy's standpoint, like
Yeah.
there's the line and you're going past it. Like, I mean, you can like this person as a friend. You can even like, there's places where like you're beautiful. I still have feelings for you, but I have moved on. And he crosses that line.
There's a big
like,
difference
by a
between
lot.
being chummy and what we see in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jennifer, you said you had things to say.
I do have things to say because she was the most important woman in his life for 9 years. Like, you can't just like, they had the one hot summer. It was never like that for him. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that he didn't still love her as a person. And like, the beauty of that, that scene is so beautiful because as they're going under the bridge, like the last thing that George has just told her is to tell him you love him.
Mm-hmm.
And there she gets the golden opportunity. He is opening it up for her to do it. And you can just see it in her face, like the angst. And then when they go under the bridge and it gets dark and you think she's going to say it.
Good camera work there, by the way.
I know, right? And then they both say the moment passes you by. That's the turning point of the movie right there.
And an
you know what I
incredible
mean?
music score beneath it, too. It crescendos to the point. It's so close on their faces. And it is not, maybe not just the turning point of the movie, but like perhaps like the most artistic, like, edge of your seat. I can't believe we missed it. And they even tell you you're missing it.
It was the turning point. It was the theme, the takeaway message for me, because like that's what life is sometimes. You know what I mean? You have those moments that later on in life, you just sit back and you regret, did I let that moment pass me by?
Yep.
You know? And so like, I just think that's like the number one like message I got from this movie, which is so much like regret that she had that the moment passed her by. I think that we all have felt that.
Oh, absolutely.
In our lives.
Long time ago, we covered the movie Mr. Nobody, stars Jared Leto. And I think that movie is so dwelling on that. That's a fascinating line of thinking to get into. I think there was a Nicolas Cage movie too. I think The Family Man, I think it was. I mean, I love those. What could my life have been in another alternate reality kind of thing. This movie is very much in the present with that, but I like what you're talking about, Jennifer. I'm letting the love of my life slip away from me. That I think there's some degree of like, kind of got to go for it, but you're way too late. You checked in the game really late.
And but she had that opportunity right then. If she really could have committed to herself and her feelings, she would have done it in that moment. She would have told him she loved him, and when they danced, they would have kissed, and the movie would have been over. But like she could not commit. When it comes down to it, the flaw was in her character. He would have always been her man.
That's a good
like
point.
He would have loved her from day one.
I'm liking the scene more than you're talking about.
That's true that you bring that up. Is that what we get is you just nailed it. Is that we get to actually get this character description in she hesitated and lost, and that may have been a part of who she was before, and it's something that the movie, you don't have enough time to learn that much about her. That she's successful. That's kind of it. There are other times where a movie might show a 27-year-old woman behind a desk with too many stacks of papers on there. That at least gives you a clue. We don't have that many clues into what kind of Julia Roberts character it is. Just see her. And so this gives you a chance. You're right. It is turning point in the movie is once again her true colors showed, which was hesitate. You don't get the guy that you want. You lose. And that was something I wanted to bring up to you guys. That's brought up a couple times. It's like, I want to win my claim, or you lose the game. Did you see it that way, Russ? Where you're like,
yeah. I mean, there's only one dude to go around. There's two women who won him. I mean, that's real life. I mean, winning and losing a basketball game feels different, I guess you could say, in that regard. The stakes are actually much higher. I mean, you can be happier with more than one person in this world. The notion that there's only one person for you in this whole world is not exactly right. But
that throws me back to the elevator scene, where it's like right after her and Kimmy first meet, and Kimmy says, "You're going to be my bridesmaid because my best friend broke her hip line dancing in Abilene," which is funny. My daughter used to rodeo in Abilene, so I caught that this time. The first time I didn't know where Abilene was, but anyways, she says to her when she stops that button on that elevator, and she tells her like, you you're my biggest hesitation. Because you're the competition. You're the woman I was never going to live up to. And then she says, but I just decided that you win. That's what she says to Julia Roberts. And she says, you win. And she was like, because you can always be the friend by his side and I'm going to be the one in his arms. And that's just like, oh, a dagger right in Jules's heart, you know? And of course, the elevator opens up and she falls down again, because that's like a common theme in this movie, that she just randomly falls down, which I'm really not sure why, because they never really tied that into anything. She doesn't
do the physical thing as well. She's going for that Lucy. She even mentioned like the Lucy Ricardo was like being an influence. The director did too, of like getting in deeper, you know, doing something and, you know, oops, there's another turn. And instead of coming clean, or, you know, you go deeper, which is a Lucy thing to do. It's definitely in the character. It's definitely in the writing. It's good writing and it totally works. It works for Lucy. It works here. She does not always land the I fall off the bed thing. I mean, there's a degree of like Kristen Wiig being goofy, like in Bridesmaids, where like there's this like, you know, there's this Julia Roberts is just a little too cool to she can't.
I mean, you cannot be like, you know, a food critic and have an editor, you know what I mean? And like be all like refined at all these times. And then suddenly you just fall out on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it just did. That's like the one thing in the movie that like, I just never really understood exactly what they were going for with that, because it didn't match her character at all.
Yeah. The pratfall as a device seems like, well, is it going to potentially be successful and get laughs in the theater? Sure. But does it wrap this up into character study, or does she pull it off? Maybe not.
Well, John Corbett appeared at the ending in the original film instead of dancing with George. So John Corbett from, you know, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, just he comes in and meets Julia Roberts on the stairs, and nice guy, and then they go in, they dance, and she gets her dude at the end. Instead, she doesn't get her guy in the end, and she doesn't get a different guy. You know, she gets a lesson at the end of this, and I'm really glad that, you know, they shot it, they tested it out, but I'm really glad that, you know, PJ Hogan made the right choice multiple times in this movie. I mean, we just criticized some moments where the mood might not been done, or they went too far across the line in some cases. But I will tell you this much: the big decisions, the big moves with the characters, with how to do these things, and nailing the humor in them, did a very good job. And I'm really glad they didn't pick this other end. It's terrible. I got to see it. It's on like a special, like under special features on YouTube. You got to see a clip of it, pretty decent chunk of it, and it's like, wow, I'm glad they so glad they didn't. This movie ends perfectly.
I would have been devastated. If he would have ended up with Jules.
Well,
I really would have.
Well, it wasn't Dermot Mulroney who did. It was just some other dude at the wedding. But still, I don't like that as well. I mean, we've come to George's, like you said, George is the guy who got nominated for a lot of these things. You know, Rupert Everett really steals the show. We all want him to go out in the end. That you know, the whole like, you know, there won't be a long relationship, there won't be sex, but there will be dancing.
Sure.
That's right.
Yeah, leave it up to us to imagine what a successful future for Jules looks like. It doesn't have to be that at the same event you met a handsome Greek dude.
Right.
It's funnier and so cleverly written to have that phone conversation. Like, I was like, I thought this movie was wrapped up. This is pretty fun. Like it was a perfect ending.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, I think that's why, like, even now, like, she relates to, like, today's woman. Because, like, at the time, that it wasn't, like I said, everybody in society thought that all women should be married by the time they were 30, you know? I mean, I think they were ahead of their time on that. Because if I had to imagine Jules, like, from 27 to 37, I still would imagine her living her, like, the same type of lifestyle and being best friends with George and being okay with that. And in today's time, that would just be perfectly acceptable. Like, nobody would think anything differently of that. So I just think that that's one of the reasons I thought this movie was like actually like way ahead of its time in so many ways.
I love the setting. The Chicago, I've gushed about Chicago in multiple movies before, particularly with Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I mean, there's no more Chicago-y or a movie than that one. John Hughes loves himself from Chicago, but again, it's very charming where we are here again. I love the Chicago riverboat scene. The train station that they include in here is amazing. The restaurant scene is, you know, that's a real restaurant. You can go there. It was Joe's Crab Shack. So that they did that. If you want to go there, that's the same train station that was in The Untouchables, by the way. So And then the estate that they got was perfect. I love all the locations. Again, maybe I just get excited. This is my favorite American city, but I'm so glad that they set it here. And that riverboat scene is great. I've done the riverboat tour in Chicago. I highly recommend it. It's just, I don't know. Sinatra said it well. It's Chicago. It's my kind of town. I love it in this movie. There's a sense of action when they go into the city and stuff like that. They're running. When Diaz is running and she's being chased, like you said, it's a great chase scene.
Crowds by the train, having to force your way through other people.
Yeah. So, baseball, Sox owner, etc. All these different allusions to, the city and stuff going through there. I loved it. I mean, we didn't go full tilt tourism mode like we did, and I think we covered Valentine's Day, where it's just like they really did like a travelogue. They didn't really bend their neck to say like, look how beautiful and romantic Chicago is, but without trying, it still is because it's Chicago. It's outstanding.
Well, we do have to give the caveat that you're more keyed into this than most people on Earth because of your film and architecture just mixing in. But I got to say, this movie actually reminded me of something we recorded on fairly recently, which was Midnight in Paris, in the sense that sometimes what you're looking at is you're not looking at the city, you're looking at the wealthy version of the city, in which case all you're really looking at is wealth. You're looking at fine dining rooms and you're looking at, $300 entrees. Then at that point, you're not looking at the city, you're looking at wealth. And I think in both that movie I just referenced, but also here, is that clearly one of the characters is the owner of the White Sox. Things aren't going to be hard, right? Everyone's going to have the money that they need. We even learn that Dermot Mulroney, that Michael has, quote unquote, a bad job. No, he doesn't.
No, it's a pretty good job.
Right.
But like at this point we're going, okay, well, but nobody wants for anything. And that's why like these emotions exist whether you have money or you don't. And in both of these movies, I think when describing the setting, I didn't feel like I was looking at just wealth. I felt like I was looking at a landscape.
Yeah, that makes me happy to hear you say that. I was a little afraid of the estate scenes for no excessive wealth would sometimes send Dustin.
It's when it's the point of the movie. If the point of the movie focuses around excessive wealth, then yeah, I've got a problem.
Okay.
Let's just be honest, though. Little Kimmy's mom is still going to make sure her nails get done. You know what I mean? Like those parents are going to those type of parents make sure their daughters are going to be just fine no matter what kind of money their husbands make. So the fact that they were even trying to make it out like that was an issue for him to get this better job, Kimmy's got a trust fund. She's going to be fine.
Well, and I mentioned it in the plot summary. It's the only point of conflict, it seems, is that because she's a billionaire's daughter, that his job might not be good enough, and that apparently they have talked it over. Apparently it had been settled. It's like, this is what we're going to do. But it seems as if this would have been an off-screen fight or an in-the-past situation of, well, yeah, I'm a beat writer and I have to travel with the team or a set of 4 teams that go from here to here, and like it's not glamorous, and I'm staying at the Econo Lodge and all this stuff. That is essentially our only sliver of conflict that allows Jules to exploit it. And what a sinister exploitation, honestly. Pretty deep down the she went too far kind of thing. And you could tell she regrets it right away. She can't even send it.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, don't you think that Julia Roberts, like, she would not be willing to be down with that lifestyle? If he'd have picked her, do you think she honestly would have given up her career to go follow him around all over the United States?
No way.
No way she wouldn't. And that's why he loved Kimmy, because Kimmy loves him no matter what. Jules,
Preach.
at the beginning of the movie, what did she say? He'd been trying to get a hold of her for a month. She didn't even call him back. That's how relevant he was to her up until that point.
Great point.
You know what I mean?
That's a really good point.
And so yeah, no, the whole thing about Jules is just Jules has always been about Jules. You know what I mean? Kimmy is about Michael. And so ultimately it really was about Jules wanting to just win. She wanted to be, she didn't want to be the woman in his arms like Kimmy said in the elevator. she wanted to be the man that was going to be by her side so she could be number one in his life because that was always her backup. But, in the midst of all of that, you find out that she's going to be just fine because he's been replaced. Who does she have now to be the man in her life? George. You know what I mean? She's not ready for a relationship attachment. She needs somebody to think she's number one in their life. And clearly, if George is willing to fly 2 different times down there to just save her from herself, or when he knew she was really sad after the wedding, he clearly loves her. You know what I mean? Loves her. And so the ending was perfect. Kimmy and Michael ended up together and Jules ends up with George.
So other things that I like the contrast of the two characters between Kimmy and Jules. Jules is a very, she wears a lot of neutrals. She's got this power, like you said, she's a strong woman. So she's coming in with these darker colors and more beigeish tans, etc. And whereas Kimmy's got these colorful, youthful, sophisticated. So it's not pedantic or just kind of out there, but they are very different and they bring that through with their appearance and they carry that through perfectly.
Can I ask a question? Because you mentioned it earlier. Drew Barrymore read for the role of Kimberly.
She would also be good. I could see her doing the karaoke singing.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you why. Because during that time period, she was still kind of coming back in her career. And unfortunately, she wasn't looked at as an innocent person in Hollywood. I mean, she literally just did the David Letterman flash show. And so as much as she's evolved as a human now, I mean, I don't think you could find a better human who actually, I think she's very best friends with Cameron Diaz.
Yeah.
At the time, if they would have put her in that role, I think that it just would have gotten a lot of flack that it didn't need.
I just like Drew Barrymore. But I understand what you're saying. I do see what you're saying for
But we're very lucky that we get Drew Barrymore in a wedding-related movie the very next year in The Wedding Singer.
Yes, I love that too, by the way.
Which I think is underrated, and it's normally not included in the Sandler 90s flicks, but that is, it's a sweeter movie than most.
It's good.
Fever Pitch is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I have not seen that one.
More and Jimmy Fallon. Yeah. Stop it.
I've not done that one yet.
I remember that one.
I
went on a date to that one.
Jules asks her why her dress is different from the other bridesmaids. Kimmy responds with, "You wouldn't be comfortable if you weren't distinctive," so she gets her own. Because it's Julia Roberts. She has to have a unique look. So I also think they pick 2 humorously, maybe less attractive bridesmaids to put next to her just to add to the contrast as well. I think that is. Casting.
I mean, that could have been anybody, though. Who can stand next to Julia Roberts?
Cameron Diaz did.
Good
she
point.
Did. All right, Dustin, you love the music here. Again, a lot of this is Burt Bacharach. I just don't know what to do with myself is written by him and, performed by Dionne Warwick. I Say a Little Prayer as well. Wishing and a Hoping at the opening of the movie, 1950s looking bridesmaids outfits. That still opening just, I'm not sure it connects for me, but the song there, I know they went to it for that. So, and then get a little bit of John Denver with the helium scene where all the guys are sucking the helium in the balloons and singing high pitched. I'm surprised it didn't get cut because none of these are essential characters, but I'm okay with it staying in as well.
Can I ask anyone else? Did anyone else not think that the little brother was Danny Masterson? Because I did.
Danny Masterson's brother.
Well, obviously,
I recognized him from Malcolm in the Middle right away.
They look just alike. But I've never watched Malcolm in the Middle. I just saw him and I was like, is that Danny Masterson? So I'm on the Goog, looking it up. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it's his brother.
I didn't know they were brothers. I did not know that.
They're not even twins. So I don't even know why I thought it was him.
Until you texted me that, I did not ever make that connection, but I recognized him right away from Malcolm in the Middle. It's just that's Francis.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never watched Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah, that guy, that kid has a very minimal role in the movie, and like you said, the characters are barely secondary, but the scene where him and his 2 stoner friends are singing is cute.
It is.
And weird at a stressful part of the movie.
Are they stoners?
They're actually in the cast as stoners, but you don't see them smoking anything. But the idea is that's a funny little in the middle of kind of a high stress ending of the movie, they're doing this song. I agree with you that opening sequence I think goes a little too long. And the problem is I love the original version of that song. I love like the oldies stuff back when I used to work at the theme park. We listened to oldies music. To hear it not be the oldies version, like kind of grated on me, but that's okay. I can forgive that. The movie uses music so well. It's not about the individual songs, and I know Baccarat, aside from our Austin Powers movies, he needs more credit. But they're used so uniquely. The chase scene when she steals the van and a cassette pops or it tunes to the radio station. The multiple times that I know there's a term for it. Russell, if you know it, help me out here. But it's when the music is actually in the movie. It's not just the soundtrack you're hearing. There's a term for that, right? So we have that at the wedding. We have that in the restaurant. We have him singing it so sweetly on the boat. These songs come into this movie in a clever way, and that is, I brought it up pre-ad read, is that was not what I was expecting, because I'd always just seen it on. I had never given it the attention before, but that was smart movie making. And I brought it up with that scene before when they go underneath the bridge. That music swells perfectly for the moment. It doesn't happen for another 12 minutes. But the idea that it passes it makes your heart sink a little bit. And that's a movie like this. We think about rom-com. A lot of the times these movies focus on the com. Movies where your heart aches, that's the romance part. And that's the reason why almost always romance movies need to be cut with comedy, so that your heart isn't hurting the whole time. Because you're seeing that, you go, oh, they almost, and then they didn't. So I got to give kudos here.
We talked about things that didn't age well. If this movie had been made today, Julia Roberts would not have been smoking a cigarette.
No way.
You know what I mean? But at the time, that was like...
I don't know. That is pretty late even for that. Like, Bond had to quit smoking at that point. I mean, I'm not sure. Like this seemed late.
But she only did it in high stress situations. It wasn't like she was just running around like chain smoking her Marlboros. You know what I mean? It was only when she was like freaking out, And so, I mean, I guess it's better than drinking alcohol, which she had that hot scene where she drank the mini bar. But but no, the hallway scene
Richard the Bellman.
Yes, and she's like sitting there and she's like telling him she's a horrible, despicable person, that he could probably do a citizen's arrest on her. And then finally, she hands him the cigarette, and then he, takes the puff off it. And then he says to her, what my grandmother always said to me, this too shall pass. And I'm like, and there you go. There's your answer, Jules. This is going to pass. You are going to be okay. Like, if you had broke up that wedding, you would have never ended up feeling okay about it, because you wouldn't have wanted to be with him. You would have, you loved Kimmy. You admitted that you couldn't help but love her. You would have felt terrible about what you did to Kimmy. And not only that, you would have hurt your deepest best friend. And that's where another thing you see her evolve, where it turns into, she realizes right after that scene when he comes outside, okay, when he opens the door, she does one of those awkward falls back into the door, right? I will say, him biting the ring off her finger was a little cringy for me. Did y'all not think so?
It just seemed out of place,
and it would have hurt. I mean, not the best way to get a ring off your finger.
This is what Dustin and I were talking about, the line crossing. That is way past the line, but
It was very cringy, but you could see though in that moment though, she was starting to realize that she had was hurting him as her human best friend. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It started being less about even the winning or what she wanted. It was she finally evolved to the point to where she knew that she was hurting him, and I think that that's why the ending was perfect, because if it had ended any other way, they would have been divorced in a year. I mean, let's just be realistic. If they'd ever made it down the aisle.
Let's hand out some awards. What do you say?
I'm ready.
Jennifer, who is your MVP of My Best Friend's Wedding?
George.
All right, Rupert, Everett. How about you, Dustin?
He's great. For me, I did not realize, I think it's now officially, I've seen 60% of Julia Roberts' filmography. I was surprised that you said you didn't know she was in this. It was it's a kind of an iconic movie poster. But yeah, it's kind of always going to be her for me. But You're right, Jennifer. George, Rupert Everett as George is a killer character.
I'm willing to go with Jennifer with Rupert Everett. This he steals every scene that he's in. He steals the whole movie for me. He's what I will remember from this movie. And you are becoming our Jennifer. You're becoming our Julia Roberts specialist. Dustin.
I am.
This is your fourth Julia Roberts movie you've covered with us. So
Yeah, and I told you I watched Ocean's 12. I watched one before.
yeah, you did Mystic Pizza, Valentine's Day, Runaway Bride, and now this. So that's enough to become you're the expert.
Like you're gonna like be the president of her fan club.
There you go.
Yeah, already in my heart.
Best supporting actor, Jennifer.
Best supporting actor. That's gonna be Kimmy.
Cameron Diaz.
I'm gonna give it to Kimmy.
Love that karaoke scene. It's right there in GoldenEye. Minnie Driver sings very poorly, and they ask, like, who strangled the cat? And
I love that. Yeah,
but this is right up there for bad karaoke scenes. Dustin, how about you? Best supporting?
it actually might be the worst I've ever seen. It was hard to listen through. I'm just going to tell you honestly, guys. This is where I wrote down right here in front of me. Rupert Everett steals the show. He actually should be the MVP.
Okay, we're on the same page.
He won so many best supporting nominations for this that it's not so common that I side with the award winner, but it's just so clear. He was the best supporting actor, and he really steals the show. Well done.
But I already thought that I said that he was the number one actor. So if we're doing best supporting actor in that
didn't do
aspect,
anything wrong.
then I'm going back to him.
You can do it again, and sometimes
I'm changing my vote.
Yeah.
Because I think honestly it
Double
should just
down.
all of them should be him. Like any anti-swimmer now, I'm just going to go and tell you it's going to be him. I'm laid back over here. I'm a fangirl at this point.
Well, if you rewind to the beginning of the show, he got nominated pretty heavily for everything that he could pretty much. So, I mean, you're not way off base there. So, I mean, that's allowed. You're allowed to double dip.
I just want him to love me the way he loves Jules. That's all I need in my life, okay? And then everything would be fine. So that really brought it back to me.
Hidden gem, Jennifer. Now, this can be a thing or a person in the cast that you feel small, but needs to be called out and credited.
Oh. Okay, whoever the lady was in the bathroom when they're going at the she's trying to and she's going Kimmy, and some woman's going Kimmy, and she's going Kimmy, and the woman's going Kimmy, and then they get to the scene where they're having it out, and she was like, and then you kissed him, and this woman goes tramp. So whoever the woman is, I'm pretty sure she said tramp, but whoever the woman is, it said Kimmy.
Dustin, hidden gem.
I have two here. We mentioned Chris Masterson, known for his role in Malcolm in the Middle. Not much else. The reason I'm bringing it up is he's 45 now. Just to remind us how old this movie is.
By the time this hits, I will be 40 as well. So I'm this numerology is hitting
half a decade after. So then the next one is I thought it was smart to have Kimmy's father be the owner of the Chicago White Sox, not the Chicago Cubs. Because nobody cares about the White Sox. And if it was the Chicago Cubs, then you would have weird sports nerds unfairly criticizing this movie. So it was actually probably calculated to have it be the White Sox.
Okay. Well, along those lines, my hidden gem's going to be Chicago. I've already gushed about it multiple episodes. Any John Hughes episode that I will cover, I will always come back to it. Chicago, great city. Take a vacation there. Go there. Probably not in the middle of winter, but it's a wonderful place. Recast. If you had to recast somebody and put somebody else in their place, Jennifer, who's it going to be?
I'm not going to do that. That's
the game.
mean.
It's the game.
It's the game.
But you are allowed. But I will tell you this: if you love your cast so much, you are allowed to go farther down in the cast. So you can recast somebody.
Okay. I will. I'm on it. I'm recasting the Danny Masterson's brother because I don't like Danny Masterson.
Yeah,
that's common these days. That's common these days.
So it freaked me out when I thought I saw him, and I had to Google him, and I don't like to have to Google him. So yeah, he's gone.
Who are you going to put in his place?
Macaulay Culkin.
For sure. He's so stinking. Yeah.
Right.
He would have been around the right age.
Dustin, how about you?
It does require a rewrite of the character, but so be it. Isabel Wallace, so Kimmy's mom, is portrayed by Susan Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. It's it's all right.
You get some good facial reactions.
Yeah, okay, right? But in the totality of this movie, what are we getting? So it requires a rewrite, and I think the character would need a little bit more of an edge, especially with like the pure minefield that getting involved with family can be sometimes. But we don't want that person to just be biting. We also want them to be funny. So I was thinking Catherine O'Hara.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. She's always great. And a Chicago comedian. So it's all very fitting for the
Yeah.
So I like that too. Let's go with my recast. You might not like this, Jennifer, and I'm sorry, but Dermot Mulroney, I'm coming for him on this one. I'm going to go with Paul Rudd on this one. Now, before you say he's too young, he's just aged incredibly well. He's actually only 2 years younger than Julia Roberts, and I think he could have pulled this off. Mulroney looks like he's totally about to melt into Julia Roberts' lap, like multiple times. Like when he's like, "What did you do with my best friend?" He's way too in. Like some of this could be direction, and some of this is acting, but he made some choices there that, like I said, were just so far line crossing that I was confused. And even going back and looking on this is just like, well, when you go back, you know where it's going. It's just like you went too far. And I think Paul Rudd, with his sarcasm and his laid back attitude, kind of thing. I think he'd be a better guy to get stuck in the middle. That's mine.
Russell, I know you're a fellow SNL head, but I'm gonna quadruple down on our hidden gems. Is that Dermot Mulroney? Because you're an SNL head, do you remember the skit where it was Dermot Mulroney or Dylan McDermott?
Yes. Yes. Yes, I do.
I wanted to bring that to your attention. I remember that being so funny because they can't get his name right. So I was calling him Derble McDillett all week.
I have been struggling with his name all week, and that is, you've now reminded me of why I probably am struggling with it so much.
Yeah.
There was a I think it was on the Douglas Movies podcast. Like he brought up the Pullman or Paxton. Like and once you start doing that, it'll start to mess with you a little bit. Like it's not that hard. They're different guys, but once you start putting it in people's heads, it's hard. So best shot, Jennifer.
The bridge.
Yeah.
This is mine too, by the way. The boat tour when they go into the bridge and the hands up. Yep, it's good camera work.
Even though you said he was being cringy.
The camera work, the scene, everything's. I'm going to give it a lot of passes. Again, it's a romantic comedy. You're allowed to sidestep and look things. I feel like people put this genre up to a standard that they don't put other genres up to frequently. So I'm okay with it. I like the boat scene. All right, Dustin, how about you? Best shot.
And shout out to Laszlo Kovacs for like a 50-year career who ended his career with these rom-coms. My best shot is you guys are objectively right. Okay, that's the best shot. But there's something about the direction this movie goes and introducing you to the type of person that Jules is. Kimmy, Jules, and Michael are having dinner. It is after Jules has kind of convinced Kimmy to say, like, get with your dad and get him to offer the job again, like opening this wound. And they start having an argument at the dinner table. And it is, Kimmy is off screen, but Michael is in the foreground. And what you are seeing is Jules, like, be an onlooker of this tension and just, like, eat it up. And that's where you're starting to see, like, oh, she's a troublemaker for real. And we're about to have troublemaker Julia Roberts in this movie. And that was, like, a different type of turning point.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was another smartly done scene to focus on her eyes going back and forth to this fight.
Now I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that.
Best scene, Jennifer.
I may go with the hallway scene.
Wow.
It's good.
With This Too Shall Pass. You know what I mean? Because it was just so, like, randomly put in there at the perfect time to say the right thing. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I could go back to, like I said, I love the good chase scene where he says to her, like, George says to her, who's chasing you? Nobody. So, I mean, that's there too. I mean, that's up there. But no, I just, that moment, I don't know. It's just like where you just have that, like, sudden meeting with, like, a stranger and you're just pouring your guts out to him about, how horrible of a person you are. And that you, like, they just, like, concede that you're really not and just want to, like, puff off that cigarette with you for a second just to make you feel just a little bit better. I just got to give props to that.
Dustin, how about you? Best scene?
It's everyone singing at the lobster restaurant. But that's the culmination of the scene. The beginning of the scene was a captivating storyteller. And that is something that we should all treasure, like our family members that can keep you on the edge of your seat with the way that they recount something. And then when it's shown in movies, like he had this family, he showed up just a couple hours ago, but now they're all just so interested. It's fun to see done well on screen.
That's mine. So I'm going to give a shout out to when George is initially introduced as the fiance of Julianne, and then he rolls with it. He goes with it, but he's very uncomfortable with it. Facial expressions, the acting. Again, there was a lot of "I Love Lucy," mentions in the behind the scenes and stuff. And I felt the Lucy moments here. He nailed it so good. Like it's like, oh boy, like the Ethel face of what have you pulled me into now, Lucy, and I mean. I really enjoy that. There's a lot of these are some of the funniest moments in this movie of him being shoved into his uncomfortable zone. So it's the very next scene that Dustin's right where he's like, "Okay, you've made me uncomfortable. I'm going to embarrass you. I'm going to make you wallow in this a little bit since you've put me here. I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay and make it hard."
When he says that about her being the vision in pink, I just about hit the floor. You know what I mean? Think about her wearing pink like Kimmy over there. I mean, he was just really rubbing it in. It was just great.
Yeah.
Even in the car, he's like, George likes to act like he's gay. He's like, why would you do that? I find that it gets women. Yep, it did me.
Julia Roberts just bust out in that Julia Roberts signature laugh. You know what I mean? We only got it about 4 times in this movie, and that was in one of the moments she gave her authentic out loud laugh.
Best wardrobe or makeup moment, Jennifer?
At the end with her in the purple lavender dress.
Had to figure that was coming. Dustin, how about you?
George is wearing a fantastic black ribbed sweater, wide neck, during his dinner party that gets interrupted by a frantic answering machine message from Jules. And all of those people were very dapper. I'd like to be at his dinner party. I bet that's an incredible night. So I just thought that was it was a minor thing. I'm like, good looking sweater.
My serious answer is Julia Roberts. When she gets on the chase scene, when she gives him the kiss, she's got this, kind of very 90s midriff kind of green long sleeve top thing with a very nice form-fitting black pants. That's really nice for her. My fun answer is crab claws in the restaurant of the staff who are waving them left and right like the wave. And I was like, I love that they got those for those. I mean, that just I love the crab claws. They're great. Jennifer, change one thing in this movie, and just one.
That opening
might be mine as well. I've called it out twice already, and I'm sitting there going what were they doing here? I get the music, I get the theme, and
I get the yeah. It just it was real Parent Trappy. You know what I mean? Like the movie The Parent, like back to the old movies, when the Disney's would start with the weird songs. Kind of had that vibe to it. It was weird.
Dustin, how about you? Change one thing.
The family and the situation surrounding the rest of the wedding needs to be a little messier. I think there needs to be some other obstacle or some other way that Jules can be shown as someone who fixes things or mends things, because she is being counted on as this confidant for our Michael and for Kimmy, which is misplaced trust. I'd like to see more of these people in that life misplace their trust in Jules and for it to work out. Even though she does not end up with, Michael, which we end up, being questionable whether that's what we want or not. The idea that along the way, she could stumble her way into doing good for the people around this. Thought that could be a fun show.
Yeah, I might be opening scene. And the other thing I might do is just directing Michael to be a little more pro Kimmy through there, so that again, so it's not so uncomfortable. But I don't want to keep hammering on it. One of those things. Best quote, Jennifer.
When he says, "Who's chasing you?"
Oh, I like that.
No,
I
but-
actually had that written down as my top choice, where he's like, Michael's chasing Kimmy. Yes. You're chasing Michael. Yes.
Yes.
Who's chasing you? Nobody. Get it? There's your answer.
Yeah.
It's Kimmy.
But can I pick two?
Yes.
There's also the moment past the bridge, the moment passes you by. Because, like I said, I think everybody feels feels that moment in one point in their life where they just realize that, like, they just like lost something like that could have like totally altered their whole life.
How about you, Dustin?
And it just
Best
passes.
quote.
I brought it up in the plot summary. We brought up the technology a little bit, but do you guys remember making a choice as to what your outgoing message was on your answering machine? Like making the choice of what it would be? Like if you wanted to make it kind of creative. So I really like when she calls during the dinner party, the George and his husband or his partner just have an outgoing message that says, George and Werner are not in. Brevity is the order of the day. Beep. That's clever. I like that.
The other one that I like that you already brought up was creme brulee can never be Jello. You can never be Jello.
But
I have to be Jello. You're never going to be Jello.
with her red hair just flaming everywhere, looking crazy.
You're never going to be Jello.
She's looking like sloppy Jello, and she's like a food critic. You know what I mean? Like all put together, and she's a hot mess.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. We've come full circle. And on a scale of 5 stars with half-star intervals, Jennifer, what are you going to give this movie?
I mean, are you going to have to ask me that? You know, it's 5 stars.
I love it. I love it when people go 5 stars. Dustin, how about you? What are you going to give this movie?
I don't get the right kind of intensity from Dermot McDillett. The breadth of Jules' impact on the world around her is too small. Our ending is, I know some people might expect that they get together. I love the will they, won't they? They don't. I love that kind of ending. I think this is a shining example of what a rom-com should be, but I would put this at a 3 stars if it weren't for the creative use of music. So I bump it up to 3.5. Enjoyable overall, but I saw some direction in here that I was like, is this something that like will go on my favorite rom-com list? It isn't, but it is good.
I would say I'm kind of like along a similar lines in that this has taken me out of my, like, I don't watch this genre as often. And I'm glad I did. I had a lot of fun breaking out into it. I'm not as likely to return to it, but I mean, I had a lot of fun watching it and I had a lot of fun studying it. I'm going to go ahead and go up to 4. I had written down 3.5, like going into the show, but talking about it and seeing what it did, it made it right against the grain for these other things. I have a feeling I'm going to watch several more of these rom-coms over the years, and I don't think there are going to be many that are better, is my guess. And so I'm going to say I suspect this is one of the better ones, given some of the, praise that it's gotten. I enjoyed this movie. I really did. Like I said, I would easily watch this again. So if someone said, we're going to watch a romantic comedy, I would say this is one of the best ones. We've covered a few of them here on the show, Dustin, like whether it be Valentine's Day, 10 Things I Hate About You.
I don't think it's fair, but like to give context here, especially with Jennifer here, is that this is not When Harry Met Sally.
No. Okay. That's fair. Yeah. So I was going to say,
that's where my scale comes from.
I was going to say,
can I just tell you something? I'm not a rom-com person.
That's fine.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So like, I mean, yeah, like When Harry Met Sally, the year that came out, I wasn't old enough to watch it. And I never have.
Oh,
Hey.
it's worth going back to see.
Check it out.
So
You know When Harry Met Sally is a recommendation, and so is this movie. It's a recommendation.
Yes, it's a recommendation. So I'm going to go with 4 stars on this one. I had a good time with this one. Dustin, will you help me pick a movie for next time?
Of course, man. Next week on the Retro Movie Roundtable, we're going to remember the very funny Chris Farley. 3 options here. Option number 1, from 1998, Almost Heroes. 2 bumbling explorers hope to beat Lewis and Clark to the Pacific Ocean as they race across America's western frontier in the early 1800s. Saw that one in theaters. Option 2, from 1995, Tommy Boy. After his auto parts tycoon father dies, the overweight, underachieving son teams up with a snide accountant to try and save the family business. Also saw that in theaters. Or option number 3, from 1997, Beverly Hills Ninja. A man tries to rescue a woman with a little help from his half-brother. Also saw that in theaters. Russell, what's it going to be?
I'm holding up a copy of the Holy Schnikey edition DVD for Tommy Boy.
For Tommy Boy.
Yes,
All
Tommy
right,
Boy.
lock it in.
All right, Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on. We had a blast having you on there. Thank you so much for introducing this movie to us. I never would have probably remembered that it existed, known that Julia Roberts was in it, and certainly watched it. So thank you. I had a blast talking to you about it. Thank you again.
Yeah, I had fun. It's my first time to do a podcast, so I hope I wasn't too awkward.
Not at all. And thank you, all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We want to invite you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. So subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe on our YouTube channel. Give us a like on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @movie_retro. Email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. And producing and providing this podcast is fun, but not free. So we invite you to support our show like Jennifer Aniston does at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/retromovieroundtable.
She loves us.
She does. All contributions are much appreciated and will go
I'm
towards
already
making
feeling
the
bad about
show
that.
better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Dustin?
You, boy, are arrogant, hot-tempered, and entirely too bold. I like that. Reminds me of me.